Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Shannon Derejo from Creamer Media. Welcome to our webinar on South Africa's hydrogen economy, where our distinguished panel of speakers will discuss the roadmap to developing a green hydrogen value chain in South Africa. Our webinar today is sponsored by Parker Hannifin and Mitochondria Energy Systems. We thank them for their support in making this event possible. Before we start, please note that we've activated the Q&A function for your questions. Please direct any questions to the Q&A box located at the bottom of your screen. While we may not get to every question during our hour together, rest assured we will review each one. Additionally, the chat feature is enabled for your comments and insights. Look for it right next to the Q&A box. Remember, though, questions should go into the Q&A to ensure that they are properly addressed in that section. Please be informed that this webinar is being recorded and the recording will be made available to you afterwards. Also, we're broadcasting live on YouTube and the link will be shared in the chat once it becomes accessible. Thanks so much for your attention. Let's begin. Today's webinar will be facilitated by Dr. Tsakani Mthombeni, Executive of Sustainable Development at Implats, where he is responsible for developing and implementing the group's Sustainable Development Strategy. Tsakani will facilitate the discussion with our panel, which consists of Dr. Cosmas Chiteme, Director of Power at the Department of Science and Innovation, Mashudu Ramano, the CEO and founder of Mitochondria Energy Systems, Zeph Nhleko, Chief Economist at the Development Bank of Southern Africa, and Willem Foord, Sales and Marketing Manager of Robert Bosch South Africa. And without further ado, I'll hand over now to our facilitator to take the proceedings forward. Over to you, Tsakani.
Well, good afternoon to our audience, and thank you, Shannon and the team, for setting this very exciting conversation for us to discuss the development of the green hydrogen economy roadmap in South Africa. The background to this is definitely not a local one, it's a global conversation. Coming from the Paris Agreement modeling at the time, it was estimated that the hydrogen energy will probably have to make up a good 5% of the global energy demand. That number has now just been revised to about 15% to the latest reports. So this conversation comes at the right time with our panelists for today. We are going to be exploring policy issues. We're going to be exploring funding and research and development opportunities, as well as technology commercialization, and much more important for South Africa, the local skills development. We need to get through our panelists to understand where we are on the hydrogen hype, as they call it. Are we now at a stage where expectations can be met? Are we at a stage where we can now see more projects reaching FIDs to show that we are steadily moving into the stable territory of the hydrogen economy? However, the latest IEA report, the 2023 report, indicates that only 5% of these projects are actually reaching FID. So let's use that global and some local nuances to have a conversation with our esteemed panelists for today. Before I give my panelists opportunities to contribute, there's 5 to 6 things that we want for our audience to get out of this from today. One is a good understanding for what it is that South Africa is doing and what it is that we can do to contribute into the hydrogen economy, and also specifically what is the South African government doing to catalyze this industry. What then becomes the role of the DFIs in shaping and policies that will enable a viable hydrogen economy, as well as what then becomes of the local technology development and production capabilities in the country for us to take advantage of this. We have to look into the aspirational break-in unit costs and what that trajectory looks like as of today. How far off are we to $1 per kilogram of hydrogen, particularly in South Africa? And lastly, we should be exploring collaboration opportunities among private companies as well as private and public sector. On that note, I would like to start with us getting a very good perspective of the local context in terms of what it is that the South African government is doing on this front. If I can please have an input from Dr. Cosmas from the DSI, and soon I would like for Zeph to follow that up with a DFI perspective with a local development mandate. Dr. Chiteme.
Thank you, Dr. Mthombeni, and good day to all our listeners. It is indeed a great opportunity for me to be able to contribute and give some perspectives on the local hydrogen economy, but obviously in relation to the global context. So we are now at a point where I think the hydrogen economy has gone through a number of hype cycles, but we are at a point where I think there is evidence of government support, not only in South Africa, but the world over. So there's indeed a lot of collaboration around trying to get projects to execution stage, as you said. So a number of countries have developed their hydrogen strategies. And here in South Africa, we had the Hydrogen Society Roadmap being approved by Cabinet in 2021 and released through the Department of Science and Innovation in February 2022. That was then followed by the Green Hydrogen Commercialization Strategy that was led by the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition. So from a policy perspective, I think we are at a point where there is clear direction and clear support from government. I think what we need now to do is to try and create an enabling environment for projects to now be executed. And there's a number of initiatives that are now being done towards that. So I'll stop here for now, but probably look forward to giving more details as the conversation proceeds. Thanks.
Thanks very much. Zeph, will you just give us a perspective from a DBSA view in the role of the DFIs up to now and how much more you could be playing in this space?
Thank you so much, Tsakani, and good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for having us on the panel. Yes, there is a number of roles that development finance institutions actually play in developing the hydrogen economy. The obvious one is the financing of hydrogen projects. There is more than 530 DFIs globally with an asset base of around $23 trillion. Here in South Africa, we've got about 45 development finance institutions and development finance agencies with an asset base of around 346 billion. So there is an asset base to leverage to finance and develop this sector. But quite frankly, the development of projects only come in later in the process. I feel the conversation on hydrogen economy is exactly or more or less where the renewable energy conversation was in the early 2000s. So there's still a few critical roles that DFIs should play at this early execution stage. And three of them are the following, Tsakani. One is the question of policy advocacy and technical assistance. I think we, as DFIs, we continue to augment the efforts of government and the capacity of the state to make sure that we integrate green hydrogen into the national energy mix. For example, we are arguing that the integrated resource plan should actually include assumptions, about the production of hydrogen in the future, and therefore the electricity demand that come with that. It should be a very clear assumption that is incorporated. And similarly, we have a role to play in ensuring that regulatory and contractual frameworks and policy instruments are set up such that they support the development of hydrogen. We've seen how important this is when we were setting up the independent power producer procurement system. So this is a critical area. The second role is project preparation. At this early stage of execution, we have to make sure that we develop a project in terms of how they are properly scoped and how feasibility studies are put together to make sure that these projects are bankable. And as DFIs, we achieve this, of course, by using traditional instruments, concessional finance, grants, and even guarantees, or by creating dedicated facilities and funds to deal with this. And I'll come back to this question of dedicated facilities at a later stage. But from our point of view, then, project preparation contributes to this very important task of de-risking projects to enable even more private sector participation. The last one, the last role that I think is important at this early stage is developing the infrastructure, the hydrogen infrastructure. And this will help us ensure that there's a successful hydrogen economy to facilitate, things like storage, things like transmission, distribution, and so on. So this becomes an important area to set up the infrastructure to enable, the environment for green hydrogen.
Well, this sounds very exciting for what's coming ahead, and I do hope that our audience is they're also preparing some very engaging questions for us. But let me just come back and back to mitochondria. You've been talking hydrogen technology for quite a while in South Africa. You've been championing this, and so if you could please just position for us how you've been able to ensure that there's a sustained and a continuous conversation, exactly as the country has come to where we are now. What has been your role and some of the wins and the challenges in that regard? Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mthombeni, and good afternoon, panel colleagues on the panel, and also good afternoon to the listeners. I'd like to start by saying welcome to the era of mitochondria energy. Welcome to the era of decentralized, distributed, and networked energy. And welcome to the hydrogen era. As a matter of fact, just to give context, the story of mitochondria and hydrogen is an old story. And in some instances, if you take hydrogen, it's a 14 billion years story. So if you go back to the beginning, there was energy and there was information. And that information, that is in the Big Bang, the theory that we all have heard, then that energy and information became matter. And that matter, as the scientist tells us, 300 odd years after the Big Bang, became hydrogen, and hydrogen became helium, lithium, and then all the rest of the elements that you find listed in the periodic table. So hydrogen has always been there with us. We had not actually understood that actually the whole universe is powered by hydrogen, we are told that 99% of the universe is hydrogen and helium. So there's never been an era where hydrogen has not played a pivotal role in the affairs of the universe and our affairs. I mean, most of the power that we enjoy and we use is from hydrogen of the sun. The sun is powered by hydrogen. So I just wanted us to understand that we have always lived in a hydrogen age, and we are the ones that are a little bit behind times. Now, mitochondria is a name that we chose because we believe in biomimicry, ask nature. We embrace this wisdom of nature, which nature has endowed upon us. A few years ago, I looked at this question of hydrogen, and I wanted to locate mitochondria within a specific area of the hydrogen economy. And I found some research that was done by one of the consulting firms, estimating that by 2050, the hydrogen components market will be $200 billion. And looking at the African history and the economy of Africa, I thought that should be the area where we should focus. And I set myself a target that I would like to participate in this $200 billion market. And the target we set ourselves is by 2050, we want to be a significant player, almost 20% of this hydrogen components market. Now, 20% of the hydrogen components market is 40 billion. And 40 billion is 2.5 times the size of the current mining industry in South Africa. So we're not talking about an insignificant participation in this emerging old hydrogen story. We are talking about becoming serious players. So what are we doing as mitochondria? Very briefly, there are 3 programs that I would like to explain. One is we are doing a Hydrogen Valley Innovation Hub in the Vaal region of Gauteng. And there we are going to be producing our own fuel cell technology. And the fuel cell technology is a technology that produces electricity without any moving parts. So you put in hydrogen and you get electricity, heat, and water. So there we are building that particular sector with its value chain. And the value chain of hydrogen, of fuel cells, is huge. If I had known that I would have had to deal with 150 different companies around the world to build that a supply chain, I probably would not have gone into the industry. But it is an extensive supply chain. We are building our own inverter in the Vereeniging area. That work has started. for us. So the first one is the Hydrogen Valley. The second is what we developed when I was working in the Northwest Province some 20 years, more than 20 years now, where we looked at the platinum group metals value chain. So we are developing what we call the Platinum Innovation Hub, which will be based at the Madibeng, and more precisely in partnership with Bosch, Robert Bosch, where we will be developing.
Yeah, so I think at that point, I want to circle back to that point. When we circle back to the second round, it's a very, very critical point you are segging into in terms of local capacity and capability to meaningfully contribute in this. For now, I'm glad you've given us an overview of what mitochondria has been championing in the country. So park that one for now. And as you're already introducing Bosch, the company that you have a relationship with here, Willem, if I could quickly just get from you, I know I don't want to get yet into the specific technologies, but at a higher level, what is Bosch doing to drive this hydrogen economy forward in South Africa specifically?
Yes, I'm audible?
Yes, you are.
Yes, okay, perfect. Thank you very much, Tsakani, for the question. Thank you very much for having us, Bosch, on this platform. Specifically, thank you to Mashudu Ramano also for his extending the invitation to us to participate in this round. So yeah, good question. Bosch has been around for a very long time in South Africa, nearly 70 years or so. Today we play quite a significant role in advancing the hydrogen economy in South Africa with various stakeholder discussions, strategic partnerships, focusing on really renewable energy to a large extent, because this is our goal to be sustainable. What we've done is to then have a look at the entire value chain and hydrogen economy. We do this globally, specifically then in the Southern Africa region, to see who are all the players, what are they doing, and this is then basically the starting points. Where do you connect with whom, and what is the relationships like? How can you really have a win-win situation with many different types of companies? Bosch is a long-standing business in the South African market, and more specifically to your point, what is Bosch doing? We have today a factory in the Northwest Province in Brits, which is part of the automotive hub, sort of, and yeah, we are producing some components for the local market and also for the export market. We have a very strong drive to be sustainable with also our factories. We have something like, I think, 280 plus factories worldwide, and we practice what we preach. And in this case, today we really aim to decarbonize our factories as much as possible. And South Africa is no exception. So for us, today we see the possibility to bring our hydrogen technologies, and I know you said we talk about the technologies a little bit later on, and I'm happy to, obviously, because that's a little bit of a different subject to go into the technologies, but to employ basically the technologies into our Brits plant, to the extent of having the production of hydrogen on site, compressing that hydrogen, re-electrifying for our, let's say, our evening cycles, and then further to that, see what other opportunities would be available outside our own plant, inside the economic zone, to also help other industry players utilize hydrogen as a decarbonized fuel, and using it also then to basically earn green certificates and be able to utilize that then to further be more competitive with exporting products, reducing their own carbon footprint, etc., etc. So that would be in a nutshell, without taking too much time, because I know we have a lot to get through what we are doing right now.
Great, thanks, Willem. I want to circle back to the country programs and policies. What we've seen with other technologies is that the very strong, consistent, and predictable policies have led to significant breakthroughs in markets that otherwise would have been slow. A case in point will be the public procurement rounds of renewable energy from IPPs that has played a catalytic role in South Africa today, leveraging of renewable energy technologies and market and skills. So I'd like to circle back to both DSI, Dr. Chiteme, and Zeph, in terms of what we have seen globally and we continue to see is countries understand their national strengths that they leverage on. Some leverage on their R&D capacity, some leverage on their manufacturing capabilities for the technology, whereas others leverage on the natural resources that they are endowed with. And most markets, or some markets, focus on consumption side. So I would like to circle back to policy South Africa level to say, what is it in this value chain that from a DBSA side, you are influencing policy to maximize and leverage into the hydrogen economy? And Dr. Chiteme, from the DSI perspective, so that we can get a feel for where policy is driving this conversation on both ends of commercialization and research. Happy to start with DBSA to share some insights on this.
Oh, thank you, Tsakan. You know, McKinsey reported last year that, and they did this after looking at some 1,000 large-scale hydrogen projects that they were investigating, and they reported that there is a hydrogen development financing gap of $380 billion to 2030. And they said that 36% of this is in the infrastructure space of this development. So that gap, together with other development, interests that we have, caused us to jump into action to set up a funding platform for South Africa, because we feel, yes, there are funds that could be allocated from the fiscus and probably from the DFIs that I mentioned earlier, but in our mind, that won't be nearly enough. So we came together with Sanlam, the Industrial Development Corporation, and two companies from the Netherlands to form what we call the South African Hydrogen Fund. This is a platform that we hope will do two things. It will catalyze the attraction of investment, but it will also deploy funds into the development of the hydrogen economy. There are two tranches, if I can call them that. There is a development capital tranche that we hope it will help us during this early stage and support the development of project preparation that I spoke about and so on. There is also the equity construction capital tranche, which then will be deployed into the actual construction of projects. The development capital tranche is about $100 million, and the equity construction tranche is $1 billion. Now, to date, we have raised the full development capital tranche, and we are looking into closing that fund by this December, where we hope that all necessary documentation, partnership, subscriptions, facilities agreement, and so on and so forth would have been signed. So that's great, because as I said earlier, this is the part that we need now as we start this execution phase. The equity construction capital has got 3 tiers, if you want to call them that. There is a junior tier for $200 million. There is an ordinary equity tier for 400 million, and there's a senior equity tier for 400 million. And we're looking at closing this particular tranche by April next year to make sure that once the preparation of projects and the support at the early stages is done, interested parties can tap into the actual construction of projects. So this is, we think it's an important augmentation of the government process, not only from a policy support, but from an actual deployment of the process.
Thanks very much for that. I think it does show some commitment to move the sector, the industry along, adopting faster green hydrogen technologies. From an R&D perspective, from DSI, do we have anything unique to offer this industry? Be catalytic, or do we have capabilities that we've invested in?
Yeah, thanks a lot, Dr. Mthombeni. I think you mentioned three important key aspects: the industrial and manufacturing capability, the R&D capability, as well as the natural resource endowment. And I think as a country, we are very much privileged that we can actually tick all the 3 boxes and say we have got capabilities in all those areas. As far back as 2007, Cabinet approved the Hydrogen South Africa Research, Development and Innovation Strategy, which has really been the key driver in actually setting the foundation for the development of the local hydrogen economy. At the time, the focus was on actually how can we promote local value addition and beneficiate our PGM resource, so that we actually create value-added goods locally rather than continuing the status quo of sending the PGMs elsewhere, and then we buy the value-added goods back. So on the basis of that program, and I would like to really commend government for having made a very conscious decision to fund that program consistently from 2008 until now, where again the program has been extended by another 10 years. So through that research, development and innovation program, we have been able to create a very healthy portfolio of IP along the hydrogen and fuel cell value chain. And these stem from PGM-based catalysts all the way up to value-added products such as membrane electrode assemblies, catalyst-coated membranes, as well as hydrogen storage technologies based on metal hydrides. So we believe that with all that capability, we have set ourselves up to be a very significant player within the global hydrogen economy value chain. And that is now being taken to, all those technologies are now being taken to market through collaboration between government and the private sector. Thanks.
Yeah, no, thanks very much. So what I'd like to do is to, given what you say government has been doing, and given what DBSA says government is making available as a support mechanisms for the industry, can I circle back to mitochondria, and can you share with us your experience in leveraging of these 2 sides of the spectrum in getting to where you are? For example, perhaps talk to us more about the Platinum Innovation Hub, which from your introduction sounds like it's linked very much to a local beneficiation of the PGMs. Could you take us through your experience in leveraging of what government says they are making available out there?
So maybe I should start by painting why hydrogen, and then I can respond to your question. If you look at the energy situation in the whole of the continent, Africa has more than 600 million people that have no access to modern energy services. More than 600 million. And what we are saying is, and this is a fact, if you have no energy infrastructure and you have got poor energy systems, you have no economic development. And that's why most of our countries in the continent are poor. One study by Harvard, Ricardo Hausmann, says up to 30% of GDP in any economy is accounted for by energy infrastructure and energy provision. So this is very fundamental to changing the fortunes of the economy of our region. So coming back to the how have we accessed government inputs, I would like to single out the Department of Trade and Industry, the IDC, and the DBSA. They have been amazing partners of ours in the development of the fuel cell project that we are doing. We would not have been able to do that without their input. So they have played an important role to where we are in this development. What I think is necessary is a coordinated effort throughout the various government entities and departments to have a single sort of point of contact coordinating these developments. What you currently have is DSI on one side, is the IDC on the other side, and is environmental affairs on another side, and maybe the presidency also doing certain things. But we need a much more coherent approach to the development of the hydrogen economy in our country. I think I want to say this very briefly, if you allow me. I believe very strongly that if we can develop the use of hydrogen in our economy and energy sector, we will create a much more dependable, secure energy sector that is not dependent on fluctuations in the oil markets around the world. And if we can do that, South Africa will become a significant economy with stable energy provision.
Thank you very much. It is good to hear that it's not only government saying they have all these support mechanisms, but to hear of a beneficiary speaking of having access them, I think is very useful. My last round of questions to my panel here, I want to circle back into the technology side in terms of unit costs and trends, particularly for green hydrogen. In Europe, it is said that they are currently sitting at about $5 or so per kilogram. They are hoping that a good indicator will be $2 per kilogram, but definitely wanting to drop below $1 per kilogram. Based on the research work on the go, based on the technology from Bosch that you're seeing globally, how far off are we in terms of getting to that number, perhaps even $2 per kilogram of hydrogen? Dr. Chiteme, what are we doing to reduce that? Bosch, what are you seeing as key levers to bring that down?
Tsakani, is a question to me or to?
It's to both on the technology research. What are we doing to drive that down? Also on the active market front, what are you seeing as innovation in the market that's working to drive that down? I'm happy you start, Willem.
Okay, perfect, 100%. Look, I must be honest, we are not so much focused on the cost of the hydrogen at the pump, because at the end of the day, that's the market forces that determines that number. So for Bosch, that's not our focus. Our focus is, of course, to develop technologies and industrialize it in large scale. And this is basically where I guess I can answer your question to a very large extent and tell a little bit about the technologies that's available from Bosch today. We have really a huge portfolio of hydrogen technologies on the market in many different phases of the product life cycle, from prototype to sample to B samples until series produced products, just depending on of course the type of technology that we are talking about. We have actually a huge experience. The company is 130 years old, as I said, with many factories, so we have huge experience with mass production and industrialization, setting up production lines that works very efficiently. With really deep knowledge, and this is really helping drive the cost down, because mass production means reduced cost. So in an overview, what we are doing and why Bosch is investing in all these technologies is because we look at the market and we see there's a big demand. We have at the moment, up until now, not at the moment, contributed already or invested already 2.5 billion euros into technologies over many decades, starting already from water purification that is needed for the electrolysis. We have developed a electrolyzer stack, a standard 1.25 megawatt product that is fitting very well in a robotic industrial line. Excuse me. We are also investing heavily into the production of the solid oxide fuel cell, mostly for the baseload power generation. For the PEM fuel cells, we are already into mass production, producing 3 to 4 different types of fuel cells with many customers globally, mostly I guess in the Europe and in the eastern region. Then since there is still the push-pull between fuel cell electric vehicles and renewable fuels, we also invest into the technologies of combustion. So we have today also a portfolio of products available for combustion into the engine. You see already many companies launching internal combustion engines with pure hydrogen fuel injection. In Europe, there's already been 3 or 4 just recently at the IIA show in Germany. There's a room for dual fuel injections as a transition technology today for heavy commercial off-highway type vehicles. It depends, what is the best fit, what drivetrain is the best fit for those specific applications. We do also a lot of work together with our sister company Bosch Rexroth, fully owned by Bosch, doing a lot of compression on either liquid or gas hydrogen. Then we extend even into boilers, gas boilers, not gas boilers, steam boilers, or industrial water boilers. And we go up to 55,000 kilograms an hour, or even 38,000 kilowatts. We have these boilers that's ready to burn hydrogen as well. So we create a lot of offtake also for this economy. And maybe to finish off on that, how to scale, how to learn, how to make sure the product life is coming, the product is coming down in price as time goes by. Yeah, you have to learn, and in this case, we have already a digital twin in many different formats that we could use as a software program and install it on different machines to learn and therefore drive down the costs.
No, thanks for that, Willem. There is one connected question here that goes back to Dr. Chiteme and Zeph. One, this is to do with the demand for this green hydrogen not being visible, and the projects that are being announced. Even I think last week, there's reports that the much spoken about project in Namibia is also hitting some developmental snags. So are you able to position the South Africa roadmap as far as what it is that we're learning from there to proactively de-risk our roadmap, Zeph, as well as the demand? Where is the demand? Where are people signing so projects can get going? What are we seeing on that front, Zeph?
Yeah, I think it becomes very important to ensure that the early stage preparation of projects and support for project is in place. And it's precisely for that reason that project should be bankable. There's about 9 projects that are in action at the moment. Most of them are in the Northern Cape, including the Boegoebaai. And the DBSA is actively involved in a whole range, a number of them. And the approach that we are emphasizing is to make sure that these projects are bankable, because otherwise you will not find investors. So I'm just emphasizing the early stage support for these kinds of projects to make sure that they continue. And it's not a simple, straightforward sector. So we understand that there'll be those challenges early on.
Great. I think that does give a view of some of the challenges in promoting these technologies at this stage for where we are. Perhaps we are expecting way too much too soon from this sector. We're not sure, but it's encouraging that we are, I think, moving in the right direction. And from what I can hear here, there seems to be a need for policy alignment, and this is a question that's also now has come up in the Q&A, where people are saying, can we get a single country direction, because we seem to be having government departments speaking in different directions. Maybe it's confusing to the market. So that goes back to the need for shaping the policy discussions there. And also from what I'm hearing, there seems to be this burning need to get the Boegoebaai and these other projects that we have to get to production, so that we can ultimately get to see the value proposition manifest. And at this stage, it does look like the actual demand is it's kind of weak. Yes, we're leaving it to the market, but the market is hesitant without these big, well-priced or well-costed projects to deliver on the green hydrogen. And it seems like there's a lot more work still that we need to do to create an enabling platform where we can also have a budding SMME sector supporting it. We've heard from Mitochondria talking to some more than 100 of suppliers and contractors involved in the sector. So there is definitely something for the country, but it does seem like we need some catalytic lighthouse project to get us there and demonstrate all of these. And Shannon, I would like to dip into some of the questions that have been posted here for our panel to make sure that we maximize and tap into their knowledge fully here. We've dealt with the question of policy alignment. We've dealt with and the request there for policy alignment. We've also reflected on the Namibia's green project. There's a question here where we are told that it's moving faster than the South Africa's projects. And we're not quite sure why that might be the case and what can be done to catch up. And Zeph, I think you are probably closer to giving some explanations from what you can see over there.
Yeah, no, thanks, Tsakan. I wouldn't want to go into specific projects or details of projects, but I think there are very clear opportunities that we should, tap into. One of them is the fact that industrialization is back, and this time around it is green. So we need to make sure that we tap into our critical minerals that we have in this country to push this green industrialization, and make sure that mining, construction, engineering, manufacturing, across the value chain, they all benefit, to this process. So I think we need to focus on that and not be bogged down by these individual projects. I know these projects are continuing and they have support, but as I said, I think it's early on, it's early days, so we need to be patient about that. There's a whole new opportunity opening for local communities from this process, and I think this will help us to actually capitalize and focus on the just element of our transition to push, local jobs, local training, local employment, and so on. So I'm suggesting that there is a whole range and much more opportunities that are going to open up as we move in. But let's understand it's early on in the execution.
Yeah, I think I should. I think let me come in here. We have analyzed the hydrogen projects in Africa. There's about over 90 projects. Many of those projects are designed to supply hydrogen to markets elsewhere. And I think they have had a challenge, because to be able to supply to Europe or Japan or some other markets, you need some agreements that your product is going to be bought. What we have focused on is how do we use the hydrogen economy to deal with the challenges that Africa is facing. For instance, Dr Nhleko has just mentioned the issue of leave no one behind. When we were developing our project, we went to the Vaal area and we said, we are coming to build a factory here. What are you going to supply? So we begin to conscientize our people about the need for them to see these opportunities as business opportunities for them, rather than coming up later and saying, well, I want to be a BEE partner. We want them to start thinking now that they can be active participants in this emerging huge economy. So the issue of skills, we are working with a Vaal University of Technology, where we are saying, we're going to be employing people in this area. Can you start now training people that are going to be employed? So this thing doesn't become something that people just see out there. They see it as something that will be of benefit for them. We're looking at employing in that area of the Vaal 400 people in our facility. And we are developing a similar project in the Northwest, where we will also be manufacturing platinum-based related products, but for local economic development.
No, thank you very much. It does seem very clear, and also questions coming through that whatever the country does in this direction, we will have to define and fully maximize the social value proposition and make sure we reach as many local suppliers, develop as many for the longevity of the sector. There is a question here with regards to the role, I believe, of PGMs in the space. So when you look at fuel cells and you look at the electrolyzers that are used to produce the hydrogen, you look at the fuel cells that are used to convert that into other forms of energy, there is a concentration of PGMs that go into those technology packages. So there is definitely a role, a significant role that PGMs play in that space. So the overall conversation will have to include that as part of the local beneficiation conversation, which I'm sure Dr. Chiteme was one of the discussions at the early stage when Cabinet approved a lot of this work. Any comment on that?
Yeah, indeed. That's why I think as a country, we have focused on proton exchange membrane technology, both for hydrogen production, as well as fuel cells, because of the amount of PGMs that go into that particular technology. So there are indeed still areas of research where we need to reduce the loading of the PGMs, but at the same time, maintain the performance. So that's, as much as it might sound counterintuitive, it's about actually not compromising the performance, but reducing the cost in order to increase the uptake of the technology. So that's some of the technology areas that we are looking at. But also to just build on what Mashudu said earlier about really stimulating the domestic consumption of hydrogen. We believe that there is ample opportunities to decarbonize various sectors of our economy, whether it's cement production, steel production, or even the power generation sector. And we believe that some of the projects that we have done around carbon capture and use, where you then capture and convert the flue gas into value-added products, those are some of the technologies that are not only going to stimulate the domestic demand for hydrogen, but also maintain our market share, even at the export level, while addressing issues of the just energy transition.
Great, thank you very much to the panel. And there's lots of questions here that we may not be able to get through to all of them, looking at the clocks. So I'd like to, perhaps 30 seconds, each one of the panelists, what you see coming up ahead, what should excite the audience. Strictly 30 seconds so that we can make sure that we get there on time. I'll start from DBSA, and then I'll move to Mito, and then I'll talk to Bosch, and then talk Chiteme.
No, thank you, Tsakani. I think the point I want to conclude on is at this early stage of execution, the challenges are much more than financing. There's a whole range of things that we must work on, from policy to preparing projects to supporting, sponsors and so on. So that becomes very important for us to take into account. And the call to all investors to participate in the South African Hydrogen Fund is still out. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mito, 30 seconds. What do we see ahead?
Well, for me, we need to eliminate energy poverty in Africa, and hydrogen gives us that possibility. We need to address Africa's need to industrialize. We should no longer just be consumers of other people's productive capability, but hydrogen gives us the opportunity to industrialize. I think the biggest thing for me is, how do we promote a culture and a mindset and a spirit of making things using the hydrogen economy?
Thank you. That's very apt. Dr. Chiteme?
Yeah, just to highlight that I think we as a country and in fact as a SADC region, we are very blessed with the critical minerals that are required in the energy transition, whether it's the hydrogen economy or the mobility in terms of battery electric vehicles. We just need to get on with it and make sure that we really leverage that resource endowment to promote industrialization in the region through these new energy initiatives. Thanks.
Thank you very much. That's very much exciting. And Bosch, I'm sure you'll tell us that the factory is ready to produce and to support local development and SMMEs. Did I close it correctly for you?
Yes, and we have a job even there for you if you want to, Kane. So, everybody can be happy. Now, we are here to stay. We have been here for a long time, and we are here to drive the economy together as a private sector with the government. We want to create jobs, stimulate the economy, bring skills and resources. The Germans are very strong in this case. So we're open for business, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much to the panelists and the audience for staying with us, as well as Shannon and the team. May I hand over the microphone to yourself, Shannon?
Thanks so much, Tsakani. That does bring us to the end of our webinar. Thank you to everyone who participated in the Q&A. We'll go through everything, and where possible, we'll try and respond to you. But I would like to take this opportunity to say thank you to our facilitator, Dr. Tsakani Mthombeni, for enabling an engaging discussion. Thank you also to our panelists, Dr. Cosmas Chiteme from the Department of Science and Innovation, Mashudu Ramano from Mitochondria Energy Systems, Zeph Nhleko from Development Bank of Southern Africa, and Willem Foord from Robert Bosch South Africa for their insight. Thank you to our sponsors, Parker Hannifin and Mitochondria Energy Systems, for their support in making this webinar possible. And finally, thank you to the attendees for taking the time to join us for this discussion on South Africa's hydrogen economy. We hope you found this event engaging and informative. We really appreciate your participation. Our next webinar takes place on 23 October at 2 p.m. and will focus on transport infrastructure. The link to register for that will be shared with you soon. The recording of today's webinar will be sent to you in due course, and if you have any additional questions, please be in touch. You can reach us at shannon@creamermedia.co.za. Thank you so much for your time, and goodbye.
Thank you.